So with me today is one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Caitlin. How are you this morning? This afternoon, sorry. How are you this afternoon?
I'm terrific. A little cold here, but I'm good.
Yeah, definitely been a cold spell going on in Northern California.
But we're wimpy. I guess it's not too
We
bad
are. That's
on
right.
a relative basis.
That's right. My cousins in Minnesota would have no sympathy for
Right.
us.
I should be quiet now. Exactly.
So give us the brief background on yourself.
Sure. I would say that my through line throughout my career has been in brand and product marketing.
Hmm.
Growing up here in the Bay Area, I had the opportunity to finish college and go right into high tech and started my first role in a product communications role at Adobe Systems,
Hmm.
and from there jumped ship to try my hand at my first startup and followed a peer of mine at Adobe into the mobile marketing space way back when we were building mobile communities for artists, and MMS and texting was
M&F. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the rage.
Right.
And so I found myself getting early and on mobile marketing and technology, building communities on that platform, and that led to roles at Mozilla Firefox,
Mm-hmm.
and another couple of other failed startups where I earned a bunch of stripes in the brand and product marketing um, category
Mm-hmm.
and discipline, and then landed a great role that was a perfect for me back in 2010 at Strava, which is a
Mm-hmm.
social fitness company. I would say startup, but it's definitely a full-fledged company now, 11 years later, and was their first marketer, I think employee number 10 there, and got to take my love of endurance sports and running, um, building community mobile platforms and developing apps and scaling that at Strava for about 4 years. That was a wonderful time in my career when I accidentally started a beer company.
Okay, that sounds like a story.
I had no idea that I was a beer aficionado. I was running so much, and of course, at the end of every workout or finish line, I was given a commemorative pint glass and a big old IPA, and I had a lot of opinions about what I was drinking all of a sudden. So I kept on joking that I was going to make the Gatorade of beers because things were too alcoholic or too heavy or too hoppy. I was gluten free at the time and running with a bunch of folks that had celiacs, recently diagnosed with different types of autoimmune deficiencies and diseases. So here I was talking the talk but not walking the walk. So
Yeah, you're
my
not supposed to be drinking beer if you're gluten intolerant, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I started brewing on the side and selling premium at Strava, and the two worlds collided. And I found myself trying to pitch, a premium subscription model to brand partners, and they just wanted kegs for their races. So in 2015, I left Strava to try my hand at becoming a beer master and starting a new career in CPG. Gave myself 6 months, and now I'm on the other side of that. I built Sufferfest Beer Company for about 8 years, and fully exited. I was acquired by Sierra Nevada in 2019. After that, I really got to go back to sort of my interests and passions when I finally had some time to do more good in the world. And I think in the beer industry specifically, I got to see firsthand just the massive amounts of waste and water usage within beverage and also within single serve consumables.
For
And
sure.
so, and
For
at
sure.
Summerfest, we were a B Corp, and so I founded This Is Water, which is a foundation and also an investment fund where we focus on other B Corps and other mission-driven startups and in certain areas and certain categories that are doing more good for the world. And so that's what I'm doing right now, investing more professionally, more formally, and also advising other crazy beverage founders.
Okay, I have so many questions, but let's start with with the founding of the beer company, because so I often say that many great startups begin with a founder who notices a problem worth solving, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it sounds like this is a pretty good example of that, in that you were an athlete, and and you created a product for yourself, kind of. It sounds like at first, right? And then, fortunately enough, that turned out to be a persona that there was more than one of. There's more than one Caitlin. There were a whole bunch of people out there that were interested
Hmm.
in a beer like this. And I think it's also interesting, kind of the guerrilla marketing that you did at first. In other words, showing up at races with the product, and so talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I I use the word accidental quite um, purposefully. I think the reason why I think it happened was it because it was an accident. I was being absolutely self-referential, and I think if I went out and decided I wanted to start a company and I got to think of an idea and here it is, I don't think it would have happened clearly. It
Right.
was very organic, and it was highly motivated by my own really selfish interests. So that was, I think, a key step to the whole formula. Um, you know, I From there, the founding of it, I would say that it was Caitlin's Fun Club. I did Stakes weren't high for me. I was bootstrapping this thing, and it was a passion of mine, and it was really focused on my friends and family. But um, I did hit, and all this, a lot of these stories that we hear and all these case studies of successful businesses, the timing is right, and sometimes that's miraculous.
Yeah.
But what happened with me was I was a female founder in a in a category that was suddenly shifting to better for you, to more equitable, diverse figureheads, and with true authenticity around being a part of a community that I was trying to serve. So I had this trifecta of timing and real recognizes real, and also the naivete of not knowing what I didn't know. Um, Honestly, to be in beverage alcohol in the three-tier system and all of the red tape that is involved, I'm sure if I knew what was in store for me, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And I went into a really old category that had overlooked a huge community of people, and I treated it like a high-tech startup, not a beer company, or an old school beverage brand. And I think that
Right.
was the key to my success. And then, of course, being a runner myself, yeah, I got the privilege and the opportunity to bring my own kegs to my own races and my own labeled, beer cans. And I literally would just watch and sit back and see what people chose, what their decision making factors were. And as soon as they chose my brand, I go right up to them and say, "Hey, I'm Caitlin. I saw you at mile 20. Why did you pick that beer?" So being there at that primary
Yeah.
research moment was just pivotal to the authenticity, the pace, and the ability to build a story immediately, and something that was tried and true pretty quickly. Like within 6 months, um, we had really, I mean, taken off. And I say that with air quotes because we were sort of accepted by every buyer. We were batting 1,000 at every door that we would walk into, and a fully mandated product and large chain retailers within that first 6 months that I time boxed my proof of concept for.
So, was there a particular moment when you went, holy shit, this could actually be a business?
Yeah, it really could have happened in the first month, honestly. I thought that I would go door to door with my cooler, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then Tuesdays and Thursdays I'd put whatever beer I sold into my Prius and I would deliver them. And it would be my me, myself, and I operation. Um, And again, I mean it when I say I think I batted 1,000. Every buyer was looking for something gluten removed, which we were. They love the story around an athlete and a better for you version of a reinvented liquid with a real authentic local story attached to it. With our B Corp mission too. It really just hit all these boxes in this moment that buyers were looking for. And again, we launched March 4th, and by May, I was in every single Whole Foods in
Wow.
Northern California as a mandated product. It was at that point, we were, a case study for them as the number one functional brand on their set. And I had guaranteed revenue coming in once a
So
month.
what does mandated product mean in this context?
Yeah, so at least with some chains in every region is different. What I did was work my way up from the ground up. I didn't know there was any other way. I would go in directly to a buyer who was managing a beer and cheese aisle at a grocery store, and I would give the pitch in 3 minutes in my running shoes, and try and get a sale right then and there on the spot. Um, Buyers usually have autonomy over some degree of autonomy over um, their aisles. But when you're mandated, you sort of get to leapfrog over the door-to-door maneuvering, and a regional decision maker now lets everyone know that these products are products that they are um, required to purchase every time they're out of stock, and
Interesting.
until
Interesting.
further communication with the planogram and a set of where they are located.
Got it.
So within those
So
3 months, we had earned ourselves guaranteed shelf space.
so the mandated product means that somebody higher up in the food chain, or a regional buyer, has told all the individual stores that this is a product you need to carry.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a pretty big deal. So I love that you said 3 minute pitch, because in the Stanford entrepreneurship course that I teach, at the end of the quarter, the students each have to give a 3 minute pitch, and of course there's always some engineer in the class who says, well, my startup is so amazing. There's no way I could describe it in 3 minutes. I need 30 minutes to describe my startup. And I laugh. And I tell them, if you can't sell it in 3 minutes,
That's
you
right.
ain't gonna sell it in 30 minutes.
Right. It's 30 minutes long.
And the other thing I love about the fact that you talked about the 3 minute pitch in the store wearing your running clothes is that another thing I pontificate about is that most people think of a pitch as being a fundraising thing, right? If you say pitch, people think that is something you do while you're fundraising. And I always pontificate about the fact that great entrepreneurs are pitching all the time. They're pitching for customers, they're pitching for partners, they're pitching for employees, they're pitching for new arrangements with the landlord, right? A great entrepreneur is pitching all the time, and that ability to tell a crisp, clear, and compelling story in 3 minutes is super, super important. So I love the visual of you in the supermarket talking to the buyer wearing your running clothes.
Here. Yeah. I was really lucky, and these were the good old days. I would usher them back to the storage room and try to open up a can for them to actually drink it.
Right.
Our emphasis was liquid to lips, and so we were always
Liquid to
about
lips. Yeah.
trial.
Yeah. So I also, noticed you were talking about how, so obviously, consumer packaged goods, old-fashioned business, right? Beverages, beer. These are businesses that have been around for a very long time. And for the most part, they're not located here in the Bay Area. Most CPG companies are elsewhere. And so, kind of what we think of as being Silicon Valley culture, Silicon Valley mindset, Silicon Valley startup methodology, is usually not really well aligned with what Anheuser-Busch does. And so it was interesting that you said something about how you brought a high tech mindset to the beverage business or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I think it's case by case, but
Mm,
coming off the heels of Strava, yes,
yeah,
it was a high tech
right.
company built on, a mobile and web platform and quantified self and all that jazz. But
Hmm.
really, the secret sauce in that brand and what I was, really raised there to do, and why I think Strava became so successful, was we put all of our eggs in the brand building basket.
Mm,
It was a tour de force on community building.
yeah.
And we levered every influencer, local hero,
Hmm.
um, authentic athlete to proliferate word of mouth, which I believe is the number one referral you can get when
Right.
building and scaling.
Right.
And so when I say that, that is exactly what I emphasized at Sufferfest. And before going into fundraising so I could fundraise for CapEx and build out a facility to
Hmm.
brew. I went
Hmm.
right to a contract brewer so I could bypass that part and
Hmm.
go right to, the consumer engagement, to the brand building, to the place where I could story tell. Because what I immediately understood about um, CPG in particular and beer in particular is I wasn't inventing beer. Clearly, it's
Hmm.
a very noisy,
Hmm.
very competitive category.
Hmm.
So I was in an exercise of storytelling. What I needed to do was become beloved. I needed to become understood and loved,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I needed to be the real deal. And so for
Hmm.
me, that was showing up at races. That
Hmm.
was again focusing the money that I did raise on people that could help me proliferate the brand story through word of mouth in the most authentic way possible. And I think
Hmm.
that was a lot different than I think the approach of many of my peers and competitive set at that time in the beer industry.
Yeah, these days, influencer marketing has become kind of a buzzword.
Mm,
But the concept has been around for a long time,
mhm,
right? Long before TikTok, long before Instagram. It's always been important to, find kind of the highly influential subset of your target market, and and then get your product into their hands. I always tell my Stanford students that not all customers are created equal. And so, figure out who the high value customers are and try to
mhm,
focus on them at first, because then they will help you do the work
mhm.
of marketing your product.
Right, absolutely. And I think also, we were building something aspirational. So I think you do need to focus at the top of the pyramid for that, and then your incremental circles grow from there.
Right.
And we were really guided. Phil Knight, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but said, um, I don't care if a lot of people like me as long as enough people love me. And
Mm, that's good.
I
Yeah.
think we were unwavering in who our target was from day one,
Yeah.
and alienated communities because of that. And I think even investors were saying, Sufferfest, gosh, that's a really aggressive term, and you kind of have to be inside baseball to really get that. Are you sure you want to go that way?
Yeah.
And the answer was absolutely, because the people who understand it will help us lead this community and educate followers and build
Yeah.
cachet around a community that you get to be in the know when you discover it. And we had a really clear path in terms of who we were for and being truly serving them without trying to serve everyone. And when you do that, you miss
Right.
everybody,
Right.
right?
That is 100% true. Right. So, talk to me a little bit about your fundraising process. So, what was it like pitching investors for this?
Yeah, that was the scariest part, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
I luckily didn't have family involved, but I did get pitched to some friends. And
Mm-hmm.
once you have to see your friends again, you work extra hard when you get your money.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But again, luckily for me, and I mean, this is a real luxury, and I think I so appreciate the luxury that I had now being on the other side of the table as an investor. But my proof of concept was validated really early on in my journey. Within I recognized that first round of friends and family, that seed round, people were investing in me.
They were. Yep.
They didn't, when I
Yep.
said Gatorade of beers, they all kind of rolled their eyes and recognized that I would work and I would die trying, but they were not probably expecting to see their money again. Um, However, within 6 months, I was able to really develop, ongoing and consistent revenue channels. I had case studies at major chains on and off premise. I really was able to validate my brand super early in my journey. So within 6 months, I felt I had the data, the projections, the P&L, for the right path forward to go out to some more sophisticated investors in the CPG world, that I felt I could, for lack of a better word, exploit. I really wanted to make sure I understood that, again, money is hard to raise. However, if you think of it as a commodity with your seed and pre-seed rounds, I think it's so important that you are bringing people into your team and into your inner circle that can really, really either be your champion or really drive new partnerships and new levers for you. And so going to that next round of angels who were focused on CPG, they were able to help me unlock better rates for contract brewing, better partnerships within bigger chain banners,
Right.
and it was
Right.
all part of a new system. So
Right. 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 So
I
everybody's money is the same color. And
yes,
so, all things being equal, you want to take money from people who can also help you in other ways.
if you have the luxury of being
Yeah.
discerning, I
Right.
would.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Absolutely. And then I ended up raising a Series A literally in the delivery room with my first child. So I didn't
Very
even tell my
nice.
lawyers that I was laboring because I didn't want the deal to slow down because we were that close to running out of money. And as I say to every founder, rule number one, don't run out of money. Rule
Don't run
number
out of money.
two, don't forget rule number one.
That is very solid advice. So you had a baby and closed the Series A all at the same moment.
Absolutely. Yes,
Very nice.
it was a wild ride. It's quite poetic.
Yeah. And then you sold the company but kept the baby. Is that right?
So, well, interestingly enough, I was presenting at a conference and 6 months pregnant at the time with my second child. I was presenting at a conference down in LA and happened to be presenting to my future boss, Jeff White at Sierra Nevada. And I ended up selling Sufferfest, um, really in my son's first month of life. So both children get to have a little bit of a milestone
That's
story
awesome.
around the Sufferfest evolution.
I love that. Love
Yeah.
that. And for somebody who's all about the brand story, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so we sold Severfest, and then you decided it was time for the next chapter in your life, which is This Is Water. So tell us about that.
Yeah, This Is Water is it lives in a very warm, soft place in my heart. The name's inspired by the name of a commencement speech that I had the privilege of listening to firsthand by David Foster Wallace when I was graduating Kenyon College in 2005. So now you know how old I am.
So
Um,
you were actually there.
I was there.
Oh, that's funny. I've read that speech many times, but
Yes,
that's pretty cool that you were actually there.
I would give it actually to anyone I dated after that. Part of their homework was to read that speech,
Very
and it
nice.
comes in a handy little guidebook now, that they publish posthumously for him.
So I assume that means your husband passed the test.
He did. He got the book. He read it on the first night, and he was actually the one who got me the beer making kit. So he was the one who actually
Wow.
planted the seed in this
Wow.
whole story. And so he definitely got to marry me as his reward. Um, and This is Water. The commencement speech succinctly really is about the privilege of choice and being aware of your surroundings,
Hmm.
and taking the compassionate heart and choosing, the the story that hopefully that makes you a better person in terms of how you want to navigate this world. And it's always stuck with me. I always calm down with my "this is water" mantra whenever I get fired up about some of the injustices in this world. Um, and My husband and I decided that we would sort of dust off uh, the old the old portfolio. And he also runs a B Corp, and I ran a B Corp with Sufferfest.
Hmm.
And we were highly motivated about finding other like-minded founders and founding teams, also within CPG, ideally, also in other categories, but certainly we felt like we had a lot of experience to
Hmm.
share um, within that category around triple bottom line and doing better, specifically
Hmm.
within packaging and supply chain.
Hmm.
We just see so much of it. And my husband's on a plastic free by 2025 mission with his business. And
Ah, that's only
I,
2 years.
I'm also very focused on bioplastics
Hmm.
and how I can be adjacent to CPG, because I do think there's so many broken
Yeah.
parts of it, but enable the consumer and help enable the shift and unlocking some great alternatives for us.
So I think you described This Is Water as being part foundation and part investment fund.
Yeah,
So
so
yeah,
it's dual
explain that.
pronged. Yeah, it's dual pronged. So part of our fund is designed to give to 501(c)(3)s within our
Hmm.
charter, and that's the foundation part.
Hmm.
We focus on giving to organizations that are around sustainability,
Hmm.
and some health and health tech related issues. And then This is Water, the venture fund, focuses on supply chain, consumer enablement, and packaging, typically within CPG.
Hmm.
And we love to hear from founders, and we ask anyone, come any, come all, who have a mission driven business. We
Hmm.
are angel and seed, funders.
Hmm.
But I think where Stu and I obviously appreciate being at the ground floor. We're very comfortable in that area. We've done it ourselves, and so we love to
Hmm.
be able to work with other founders, really to understand and help set up those building blocks. Because there's so much inertia, and there's so much roadblocks and fear, and hopefully we can all work together to overcome those.
So it sounds like you're a proponent of the B Corp idea, because you said that Sufferfest was a B Corp and your husband's company is a B Corp, and kind of sounds like you have a preference for those in terms of startups you invest in. So, I'm always, when students ask me, should I create a B Corp? I'm always unsure, kind of what advice to give them on that. So give us your pitch
Yeah.
on why you like that structure.
I like it, and I wouldn't say that it's the end all be all to doing good in business and having a
Hmm.
triple bottom line model.
Hmm.
However, I do find them to be probably the most mature and structured, um, and clear for a young company to get started,
Right.
building accountability at the foundation. And I
Yeah.
think accountability is really the word that I would use in terms of how you hire, how your employees are benefiting from being part of your venture and journey, and obviously the impact that you're having on your community and your community at large.
Hmm.
Um, so I think I would say absolutely. I think it gives you good hygiene and discipline from
Right.
day one.
Right. Because it's kind of baked in. It's kind of baked into your founding documents that you're.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that you definitely cross a threshold where it probably doesn't make any more sense if you are too large to kind of go back. I think this is a decision that you make from the beginning. It impacts. even how your board and investment body is made up. And so you
Yeah.
really want to have the right people around you that support this initiative because it's not always the cheapest route to go.
Right.
I would say commercially, from a consumer standpoint, I think it's one of the other more recognizable certification and accreditation
Right.
units out there.
Right.
And um, looking at it from that lens, being a B Corp allowed us to immediately work with other B Corps, build brand partnerships with larger brands that we could ride on their coattails and gain awareness around. And in terms of reasons to believe, especially with consumer, um, you know, more and more we are finding, I found that our target consumer does vote with their dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And having a real clear position on where you stand
Yeah.
around the fundamentals of how your business is made up, I think is important to a consumer who is making a decision about your product for the first time.
Yeah.
So it lends itself very successfully and well in that regard as well.
So the way lawyers have explained this to me is that if under the law, a corporation has a fiduciary responsibility to maximize return for shareholders, right? And so, kind of theoretically, a investor or shareholder can sue you saying, your profits this year weren't as good as they could have been because you made a bunch of sustainable choices, and I didn't invest in your company to have you making sustainable choices. I invested in your company to have you maximize the return on my investment. And that the B Corp, part of the advantage of the B Corp is it gives you cover. That if somebody invests in your company and they're a shareholder, that you can say, no, this is what you bought into. You know that this is what you bought into.
Absolutely. Yep. Setting expectations
Right.
from the ground level.
Right. Right. And there are plenty of examples today of B Corps that have gone on to great success. So
Right.
it's not a fringe movement anymore. It's very much a well-known, well-accepted
Right. Yeah, actually
structure.
at Sierra Nevada they did a case study and found that our six pack could produce $1 to $2 more per unit
Yeah.
based on our B Corp certification. So
Yeah. Oh,
there you have
just because of the B Corp certification. Yeah. 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 And of course, there's lots and lots of evidence these days that consumers, all things being equal, consumers will choose the product that they associate with making the world a better place in some way. That all things being equal, that in something like 80% of the time, that will influence a consumer's decision in terms of which
Absolutely.
product to
And
purchase.
ideally
So,
it's backed up with real metrics and
yes, yes, that's right. Not
real
just
do-gooders.
that's right. Not just
Yeah,
a bunch of greenwashing.
exactly.
So, Caitlin, last question. So, first of all, thanks again for your time. And I know you're busy with not only with everything else you're doing, but you're also a busy mom. So, um, uh, I love the fact that part of your entrepreneur story is that you had two kids along the way.
Hmm.
So, as you look forward to 2023 and beyond, with This Is Water and the kinds of investment opportunities you're pursuing, kind of what do you see as trend lines that you think are worth paying attention to?
Well, the world has taken a big turn, and it will right itself again and turn again. But for now, I think a direct to consumer channel is a very expensive way to
Yeah,
build community,
yeah,
and supply chain is very unreliable and very expensive, especially for those just getting off the ground.
hmm,
I love consumer enablement that is in software for those reasons. I think adjacent solves in the CPG category that can still remain in the cloud are really viable options right now and most
hmm,
affordable, certainly, at
hmm,
least from an investment standpoint.
hmm,
Um, but trends in the beverage category, obviously, that's a whole different conversation. But the unfinished business that I had at Supperfest was non-alcoholic. Our program got the kibosh when we were acquired.
hmm,
But I now find myself advising a lot of brands in the NA space, and it's
hmm,
a clear and natural progression in this world where
Yeah.
alcohol follows non-alcohol,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and everyone is shifting towards that better for you lifestyle. So that's great to see, I think, in the world, and destigmatizing NA beer is really important, I think, to everyone's health and mental wellness as well. Again, I think in that consumer packaged goods category, I'm obviously very bullish around alternative components within retail, within fashion, within packaging. I think that these are bioplastics alone is $1 trillion business. There's going to be a lot of winners, and we're getting into the place in the nascency where really fantastic brands are just coming to market and are priced and stress tested very similarly to petroleum based products. So we're right there. I think it's going to be a huge, huge topic, and I'm really excited to be a part of that.
So you
Um,
think packaging waste is actually an issue that we can fix or at least make a dent in?
I think we can. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid at least.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I absolutely think we can. I think we can do that specifically within the supply chain right now. I mean, we're seeing so much waste from all these other categories going in to becoming new resins and pellets that
Right.
were once petroleum based to make so many molds for just limitless categories from building and horticulture all the way to food and packaging. And we're seeing some real big front runners coming out and from all around the world. It feels like an arms race to me, but I'm obviously a little bit more involved in it. So I'm looking at that category really closely, and I think that we can make a huge dent there.
So final question. So when you think about yourself at the beginning of your entrepreneur journey with Sufferfest, so you're a runner, you're bringing your homemade beers to events. What do you know now that you wish you had known then that you could pass on to new founders?
Whew. Um, I would savor the moment a little bit more. I was in a really special time, and I think I was just one big stress
Yeah,
ball.
yeah,
It's really hard to do that, understood, easier said than done, but
right,
um, I would delegate more and know that, the more I think a leader can let go,
yeah,
the greater the leader can be.
yeah,
And I think that would be some words of wisdom that I would pass on.
yeah,
Um, and another one would be believe in yourself. If you're the founder, if you're the CEO, you know this business better than anyone else. And just because someone's writing a big check and really fancy doesn't mean they know more than you. And I think going inward and reminding yourself always that you actually are the reason why your business exists is a good daily affirmation. And I think that sometimes bringing in too many grown-ups in the room takes away from all the child's play fun that you can have.
yeah. So enjoy the moment, be fully present, believe in yourself, and believe that in some respects, your inexperience, the fact that you're a neophyte to this, is part of the advantage that you bring. It's part of your
100%.
part. It's part of your competitive differentiator is that you don't know how this business has always been done. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's great. Caitlin, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.